phones, but that's okay. Yeah, thanks for coming, everybody. I'm Aaron Abdel-Razak. I'm a recruiter here at Vets. I'm on the technical division, and we focus, obviously, a lot on sales engineering roles. The company, we were founded in 2009 by Carolyn Vets. We're a leading search firm in finding revenue-generating talent, specifically for growing companies here in the Bay Area, also New York, Austin, London, and also growing into other markets as well. We're extremely passionate about growing talent, obviously also specifically in technical sales roles, and sustaining an ongoing initiative through motivational videos that you can find online, outreach, and events just like this panel here. Tonight, as you know from the event page, we'll be discussing how to maximize your role as a sales engineer, which is a very, very particular role in this business, how to be successful in it, and also how to be really effective when you're trying to balance this like heavy technical expertise, but also sales, right, and like client facing, which traditionally is like not something that people do, right? Like you have engineers and you have salespeople, and salespeople talk to people and engineers don't, right? And so sales engineering is like a really interesting nuance that I think has really surfaced with all of the tech boom in this area, and I think I'm really excited to have these guys here to talk more about it and let you guys know any like all of the insight about the role and how it affects the whole industry. So now to introduce our panelists, first we have Liz Anderson, who is currently the first and only sales engineer at ProsperWorks. And then Ohad Sternberg, who is a director of professional services at Simple. Also the person only. Awesome. So let's start. Just tell us a little bit about your background, like where you started, what you studied, and how you got to where you are.
Sure. So I started my career in professional services. I did that for about a year before I realized that was not for me. So really I looked within the department to figure out where I could go, and sales engineering really stood out to me because it balanced that technical aspect along with talking to people, which I knew that I wanted to do. And so I've been doing that for about 4 years. I worked within the ICM or commission space before moving over into ProsperWorks, which is a CRM.
Yeah, I guess my background is a little bit different. I started at the age of 21 working as a QA engineer for a New York City startup, eventually continued to do operations, eventually I ran their entire support and help desk team, and then I decided that I never want to work in SaaS ever again. I quit my job, I joined the Peace Corps, I did 2 years in Eastern Europe, after which I went to grad school with the United Nations, went to work for the Prime Minister of Vanuatu, and then eventually I did my own consultancy in Thailand. And then, after zero integrity, right, saying I never work in SaaS again, I got a phone call, and of course the opportunity came, and I had the privilege of working with Rich Relevance here in San Francisco, in their East Coast team, and working in New York, I lead sales engineering. And basically, I really enjoyed to delight customers and to solve problems for them. So I see sales engineering as solving problems for your customers and being authentic with them about a solution that would work for them. Eventually, I continued with them into Japan, and from Japan, I ended up here in San Francisco.
I'm sorry, did you say the Prime Minister of Vanuatu?
Yeah.
You did, yeah. You kind of touched on it already, but why, like, what really drove you to get into this, like, hybrid role, like sales and then also like technical, like, skill and passion? What made you decide, like, I want to do this insane, like, impossible job?
I'm a little bit crazy. Really, it was, I didn't want to be bored. I didn't want to have the same day-to-day activities. I mean, when I was doing the professional services side of things, I was talking to different people, but I followed the same process. I talked to the same types of people. Didn't matter if they were different, they were the same types of people. And within sales engineering, I had somebody that I really respected who had done a similar type of move and a path than me. And I really sat down and I talked to him and said, why? Why did you go this route? Because I thought, I'm never going to be in sales again. And it's not for me. There's not much integrity there. And so really sitting down and hearing, and I just got on some of his calls and hearing what he did, there was such passion that he had around helping people solve these problems that they were trying to solve within their business. And there was so much that you could do, as well as the salespeople that I saw that I would be working with were very, very intelligent people. They wanted what was best for their prospects and their customers. So I really saw that as, hey, I can really get into a very unique field. I also don't like being like everyone else, so it helps. Just to really get into a unique position where, at the end of the day, it's a good conversation topic. What do you do? Well, I'm going to tell you what I do because you don't know what it is.
Good question.
What made you go into that path, technical sales, helping customers, with the product?
Yeah, so I think maybe, as Liz said, I didn't like sales, but I did enjoy supporting these individuals, right? Because eventually, in the world of SaaS and digital marketing, there's constant innovation. Things that we, just like every Monday and Friday, there's new technology coming up, and eventually you need to be on top of it. So one thing is, of course, to understand the innovation that's going on in the ecosystem. But then I think the other thing about it was, and I touched about this earlier, I guess, is to really help your customer get to understand what they want. Because it's not necessarily about your service. If you can be a mentor, not a mentor, I'd say a teacher about how you can leverage this kind of solution, then you gain their trust. And then the price tag doesn't matter. It's all about solving this issue for them.
Definitely. Well, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys, in a world of so much technology, these people trust you guys more than anyone else at the company to actually, you need this. Not only do I understand technology and that you actually need this, but here's how it also helps your business, right?
Yeah, and I mean, within that, you're consulting them. You have talked to many other companies similar to them, and in situations where that's where they want to be. So they want to hear, what are they doing? What can I do to change that process? And so they're going to trust us over some people internally because we've seen it all. I mean, we've seen it all. So it's different than seeing it from one perspective.
Right. And then going off of that, to earn that trust from your clients, you obviously have to have a good background technically and also a good track record.
Mm-hmm.
What are ways that you guys gain that technical expertise in your product without even sometimes having technical experience or backgrounds?
Sure, and so for me, I came from a relatively non-technical background. I actually did my degree in philosophy, which I guess more is to the sales side than to the technical side of my role. But it's really just about being curious and making sure that you ask the right questions. Because, you can do your own due diligence. You can go home and you can take classes now just about with anything. So it's finding and really having a plan of what do you want to learn, then finding out from your peers and your colleagues, how does that relate to what you're doing and just understanding what they do. I've learned so much just from asking that question, oh, how does this work? What is that? And just being interested, and they're happy to tell you. So it's just a mix of, being curious, asking the right questions, and making sure that you're, doing your own due diligence on your side of things. And again, same thing, you don't have to be the most technical on your product. I think that was the other thing that really stood out to me is, I didn't have to have all the answers, but I knew where to go and get them.
Yeah, I would add to this, I'd say I don't have any technical background whatsoever. I went to school for economics, and then I did my grad school in management and sustainable economic development. Nothing to do with sales engineering. But for me, I guess, in the end of the day, it was how to take all the transferable skills that I got in my various different places that I work with, the different people that I work with, right? The network was very important for me, and to see how I can leverage them into my next opportunity. And I didn't necessarily knew what the next opportunity was, but problem solving was really important for me, whether it was in sales or whether it was global, right? Global warming or global poverty reduction. And so if you are looking to solve problems, then sales engineering is definitely the place for you to go. And I guess to that, I'd say that you really don't need the education. You don't need to learn computer science. You just need to be client-facing and really wanting to help it's both, to help your salesperson eventually, because you have a quota, but also mostly to help your client, right? And they'll be able to smell your authenticity from a mile away. The moment that you're authentic, you're in.
Yeah.
And they'll call you again, even for other references, because then you become a friend, their mentor, their teacher, whatever it is that you, whatever role that you are for them.
Definitely. Just to check, how many of you guys have technical backgrounds? It's like about half, I guess. Yeah. So that's good. I mean, there's like a good mix of people out there who know it to begin with, and then who don't, but like you said, like find the passion for it, and then just like are curious. Also, what are you mentioned like really helping like your sales team, right? And like making sure that people trust you, and you're making sure you keep the business aspect in mind. What are ways that sales engineers can really make their sales teams more effective in that process? Because your job depends on them, right?
Sure. So I think it's a matter of, listening. You're in at least half of the calls that they're doing, if not more, depending on the process and the product that you're trying to sell. So all of the sales engineers that I've always known are very active listeners, and you're going to take notes about everything that they say, and it's just as important to take notes on how your colleagues say things and how they're positioning something, and potentially, just as important as it is to help them with, hey, maybe I would have said this way, as it is to say, hey, look, I loved how you said that. I love how you position this, or you made sure you got next steps, even if it's like they're not a good sales rep, but they're always gonna have those. But I've been a manager to these guys, even though I'm not a manager role. I've been a sales trainer. I've been a friend. I've been a colleague. I mean, I've been everything to sales reps, and it's different for each rep. So I think the key is making sure, just like our role, you change with each rep that you're working with, because they're going to need different things. Somebody's going to need, a buddy to say, hey, look, yeah, you got this, you did a great job, because they don't have the confidence. If they don't have the confidence, they can't sell. And another person's going to say, hey, look, straight up, this is what you need to work on, this is good, and then they're gonna excel with that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's always about the partnership, right? Because the salesperson is eventually leading the way, and you need to mesh nicely with that person. There's a lot of ego in sales engineering and in sales period, so you need to navigate this very dangerous ship and make sure that you are clear about your goals, right? What are you here to do? What are you here to eventually provide? And so I think for internally, it's all about designing a solution that helps your leader to move forward and open as many doors as possible. Client-facing, of course, you want to speak in problem-solving language, right? What is it that you can deliver for them? I said it earlier, that would eventually solve their problems. When you run a demo, they're not necessarily interested in what you want to show them. They're interested in what they want to see. It's exactly about listening, right? It's not about what you said, it's about what people heard. And so it's really important, I think, to make sure to tailor it for your customers in order to make sure that you are able to solve their problem. Because eventually, if you don't solve their problem, you're wasting your time.
Definitely. Say you have a prospect then, or like a client that you know of. What are ways to like figure out their problems before they tell you, or like problems that they don't even know they have?
Sure, and that's always the most difficult thing. That's something that, at least for me, I'm learning about all the time. But I think the key to solving that is figuring out who you're talking to first. So you're going to find out if there's someone who, they need a lot of hand-holding because they're afraid that your solution is going to take their job. You need to find out if this is if you're going toe-to-toe with this person because, this is kind of a battle of the brains, and you're figuring out who knows the most about their pain points. So I think it's just as much about figuring out what they need you to do as much as it is understanding where they're coming from. Once you understand where they're coming from, you can help define what those underlying questions and concerns and objections are coming from. So I think that's just the start.
Yeah. I would say also you have X amount of hours a day. If you are investing them on people that you should not necessarily be talking to, you need to stop and really understand where your champions, right? It doesn't mean necessarily that you're looking for the decision makers in the room, because influencers have as strong as a voice as these decision makers. And at the end of the day, they might be the biggest stakeholder, right, to use that solution. So you just need to identify who do you need to speak to and with, and eventually whether you are continuing on the right track or not.
Definitely. Now, focusing on the clients, what are some common, like, overall challenges that you guys face, and how do you overcome them?
I think a lot of it is it's going back to the objections. It's going back to figuring out what they're actually trying to say, because a lot of times, and most of the time, they're not actually giving you the real objection. So it's about making sure that you understand what they actually want and then providing that value, because what you have to be is you have to be sometimes the voice of reason or the mediator between the sales rep and the client. The sales rep, sometimes they have a script to do, or they have their own agenda of how they want this meeting to go, and you understand, what the client is trying to accomplish. So you kind of have to play both sides. You don't want to go against the sales rep. You don't want to go against the client. You have to make sure that they both get what they need and move the deal forward at the end of the day.
You're like a parent with twins almost, right? Like,
Exactly.
you can't pick a favorite, but they both need to be happy.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd say also there's a lot of to be said about contextual background. Sometimes you enter a conversation and you really don't know anything about a previous solution that might have failed, about disgruntled employees who just don't want you to be in the room, or just about other reasons. A company might be going under, or might be going into their next round. They're waiting for a solution. It's really important that sometimes you understand it's not necessarily about your solution, but about the circumstances. And so taking everything into effect and into consideration is really important as you support your sales account executive.
Definitely. So now focusing internally, how do you gain that trust and that like connection with your internal teams, both sales, product, like even marketing sometimes? Like, what are ways that you like connect with them and make sure that you also have their like interest in mind too?
Yeah, so this is actually very real to me because I'm doing this right now. So really it's about, it kind of goes back to the whole listening thing. You have to understand your audience. You have to, talk to everybody in the company, in the different roles that you'll be working with, because you truly are one of the most cross-functional roles that there is in the organization. And you have to understand where they see you coming in, because not everybody has worked with a sales engineer before, which is my case coming into my current company. So you have to understand what their idea for you is, and understand, because everybody's going to have a different place where they want you to fill. Like they're going to say, hey, I want you to help me with X, and another person say, I want you to help me with Y. And then they have a different understanding than what you were actually brought on. So listening to them and then also providing some color, slowly saying, hey, look, this is what I'm here to do, this is what I want to help with, and just going the process slow, especially if you're working with people who have not been with sales engineers before. You can't come across like, hey, look, I'm a know-it-all, I've done this before, this is easy, no problem, and all these things you've been dealing with for years. That's not a good way to go about it. It's just like a sales cycle. You have to understand what they need and understand how you can get them to trust you.
I would say, so working with my current company is based in Australia, which is 7 hours ahead of us and 24 hours behind us, if I do the math on a daily basis. That's how I think about it. And also with my previous companies, right, working from Japan with 9 different offices around the world, you always want to make sure your relationships are in tip-top. Like, always invest in them. Always make sure you have friends and that you take extra good care of them. You say, why? I'm only a sales engineer. My work is with my account executive and it's limited. You have no idea how building relationships within a company can solve most of your problems actually within the company. So, of course, the engineering side of the house is connected with the product team. The engineering side of the house is connected with the professional services team. After the signature, you need to hand over this entire account. Designing a solution that works for everyone is critical. So in that sense, it's really important that everybody understands who you are and that you're able to fulfill not necessarily all their wishes, but you're able to understand their needs and wants and of course their constraints. Super important. I found that these relationship building itself was the most important thing for me moving forward and succeeding in my role. If I didn't have these relationships, if I haven't invested, and I say this as the reason, if I haven't invested into these relationships, I wouldn't have been so successful.
Definitely. I feel like your internal role is just like your external role, right? Where you're like, you need to build the relationships internally to even be successfully externally. It's the same process, right?
It is, because you need to make sure that not only are you supporting them, but in a lot of ways these departments are also supporting you.
Yeah. Would you say then a lot of like a common quality of really successful sales engineers, or what maybe a quality that helps you guys be successful is like that intangible like relationship building skill or that like networking skill?
I do. I think that it comes down to the best sales engineers that I've ever known are probably some of the best listeners. Not only are they the best listeners, but they also put that into action.
That's a good point.
I mean, the thing is, everybody, when they talk to them, they're like, they actually know what my pains are. They listen to me, and they're going to do something about it.
Right. Does that mean they necessarily have to know what the action is right away, or they're just like action-minded people?
I think it's just they're action-minded people. They don't necessarily always need to solve every problem, even though we'd like to, we can't. I think it's more of knowing that, hey, look, I hear you, I understand you, and I can understand how this is an actual problem.
Do you agree with that?
Completely.
What about specific challenges? Maybe even like if you can like talk about an experience of challenges you faced internally with your team and like what you did to overcome it. Whatever you're allowed to say.
I think it's all just a matter of, some of the biggest challenges is when you have a sales rep who has a different vision in mind for the client than what you have. I mean, as a sales engineer and just as, personally, I like to have control and I like to have, my own plan in action. But just as important is allowing the sales rep to have control at some times. I mean, you can advise them, you can tell them your opinions, but not in a pushy way. But at the end of the day, it's their deal. And they're going to work it the way that they want to, and you kind of need to let that happen, even if you know it's going to fail.
It's almost like empowering them, like, hey, this is on you. You know, like, this is my advice. Do it or not. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But I mean, you say it in a nice way.
Yeah, I'd say same exact problem. I'd say is in the end of the day, you want to be their champion, right? You want to make sure that you also help them to get to their goal. There's a limit to what you can push people around and get them to listen to me now. It's not going to work. Eventually, you can show them the menu and say, here's the choices for today. You can do A, B, C, and then maybe 3, 4, 5. These are the choices. That's it. And so, in the end of the day, I think like if you are able to present them accurately the entire situation, then that's the only way to go.
Now focusing on like product, what happens when there are like product shortcomings, and you're faced with a situation where like there's these sales goals, like there are clients that need help. How do you help that?
That's the challenge of any sales engineer, no matter if you have a product that has gaps or not, because the product is never going to be perfect, it's never going to meet every need. So it's a matter of understanding what the root cause is, because sometimes what a client or a prospect is asking for is not what they actually need. So understanding, well, why? Why is the greatest question in the world. Why do you need that? So it's a matter of understanding the why to see if there is a match. And at the same token, being able to walk away from a deal is just as important.
So for me, one of the most important things was to maintain integrity. Lying or finagling the truth or making up things that the product will not do will leave you in a worse place than you never imagined. And so integrity with your clients and with yourself, of course, is pivotal to your success. I'd say this. Sometimes the purpose of a sales engineer is to help sell the business. Sometimes I think when I look back at my experience, it really helped to say what we don't have, what we won't have now, but we will have in the future. Then clients eventually respected us more because we were able to tell them, sorry, we don't do this now, we don't do X or we don't do Y, and we're not necessarily going to do it also in the next 6 months. So we might not be the right solution for you. And we received so many more clients who are more enthusiastic to work with us about what we can do.
What's the next step after that then? Like, say you do have product shortcomings, does it ever end there, or do you see a lot of clients still like they still stay throughout like your growth?
I think you get a mix. I mean, you're going to have people who respect that, and I mean, ultimately, I've been a sales engineer long enough that I've seen people come back, even at different companies. You're like, I really want to work with you because you were truthful and you had the integrity. You're a company that I want to work with. But also at the same time, you have a lot of people who they do respect that, and they're like, you know what? That's okay. We can deal without that. Where previously that was the most important thing that they cared about.
Right. Do you think that, do you ever get people just to say like, that tell you thank you when you are like realistic with them and you're like really honest with them? I feel like,
Of course. Company who literally called us back just because we were very truthful with them. And they just wanted to work with us because we were very candid about what we can do. That was the only reason, not necessarily because of all the ROI and value. They said, you guys were true with us, and we're just like, you kept us honest. It's okay.
Same. I mean, it's literally there. I've gotten something. Yeah, thank you so much. This is great. Maybe this doesn't work out now, but we got some referrals from people who they didn't buy because they're like, I think this will work for you.
That's awesome. So you both are in pretty big spaces, right? So like CRM and marketing automation. Obviously, there are a lot of competitors out there. Like, have you faced situations where like your competitors, like, or you know other products that do things better, and like you had a conversation with a client, very open about that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can guess who our competitor is. It's a matter of, because it's not basically, oh, they do this better than this. It's focusing on what you do better. Because that's our job, is positioning what you do well. What is going to make you stand out from the competition? And that's what you drive. And if that, especially if that matches up with what the client wants to achieve, then that's perfect. I mean, that it doesn't matter, you know, what else they do better, because that's what you need to drive.
In the marketing performance space, we don't have that kind of competition, so we're very lucky. But I'd say that at the end of the day, our clients really are knowledgeable about what they need and what they want. And back to this point, I think the fact that we're listening to them and are able to tailor a solution, bless you, is the reason why they continue to pick us.
Definitely. Now, switching gears a little bit, more focused on like finding your jobs. What factors did you take into consideration when you decided to work for this product specific? Because obviously, you guys are in positions where like you have to care about a product to do the job, right?
Yeah.
So what helped you decide that?
I think it's just being truthful to yourself. I really had to think about, okay, what do I like about my job and what do I don't like about my job when I was looking. And I was lucky enough to have situations where I worked in SMB, I worked in mid-market, I worked in a small product, I worked in a large product, I worked on a small team, I worked in a large team, all within the same company. So I got a wide variety. So I think it's being honest about where you want to work. Do you want to create processes, but also at the same time deal with all of the headaches that come with that? Or do you want to go in with those set, but you know, maybe you don't have as much of a voice? Also understanding, do you want to be more on the technical side of this, you know, sales engineering position, or do you want to be more on the sales side? Because depending on who owns the sales engineering position depends a lot on what your day-to-day responsibilities are going to be. And so not only that, what type of product do you want to sell? What are you going to get excited about? Because I've heard a lot of demos from sales engineers who you can tell they hate their job. And it shows. And so it took me a while to figure out what that was, and when I did, I wasn't going to budge on it, and Aaron just so happened to call me up and find it for me.
You're in luck. I'll start and said I had an amazing recruiter, and he helped me a lot.
I've never heard anybody say that before.
No, he actually took care of me instead of taking care of the company that was trying to recruit for me, and that made all the change in the world. And for that, I'm super grateful for him. And probably now I'm in the forever and all that other bullshit. But on a serious note, I think I had the privilege of working in different industries, different verticals, different sizes of organizations. I knew that I wanted to continue to delight people. And so for me, it wasn't necessarily whether I'm going to do a sales engineering position, whether it's going to be before the signature or after the signature. It was about supporting an organization that was looking to scale up. And for me, at that point in time, an interesting area where a startup from Australia would have been so much more interesting than two very competitive corporate American gigs with a big fat bonus and all the other stuff. They were also recruiting for me. So in the end of the day, you have to ask yourself the question, where are my values? What do I want to do? And how would my life look like? I think we spoke with one of you guys earlier. How would your life look like when you were in your early 20s, when you were in your 30s, or when you're 40s and your 50s, right? When do you want to do big corporate America? When do you want to do a startup? Where do you want to be? you want to be in San Francisco? Do you want to be in New York? Do you want to be in Tokyo? And so it's completely different to each and every one. And of course, in the end of the day, you need to be true to yourself, right? Like if you do not like that specific role, you will fail at it. Or I think that's the bottom line.
Oh, definitely. This might be getting philosophical, but talking about like maximizing impact. Do you feel like you guys are obviously impacting certain like very, very great areas now? You had to be true to yourself to even reach that impact that you're at now?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you have to do is, if you are doing what you love, it's going to show, and I mean, you're more confident, you can talk about all the things that it benefits you, but other people are going to be able to see that as well. And being a sales engineer, you have to kind of be this all-in-one, do everything well, which is very, very difficult. And I've even heard it's called unicorns.
Yeah.
I kind of like that term.
Which you both are. Yeah.
So I think, when you're there's so many sales engineers too that can get burnt out if you're not true to yourself. If you just go after that, oh hey, this is going to give me a good title, or this is going to give me a really fat bonus, and we work very, very hard at our jobs because everybody needs us. Everybody in the company can utilize us for different things. I mean, granted, just as important as saying no, but also making sure that you're true to what you want to do, and the right role is just going to fit that.
Repeat the question.
I
love what you said. I was like,
you're too caught up.
I was focused completely on this.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, like, you have to be true to yourself to really like reach the impact that you want to make on the clients and like also the industry that is out here.
Sure. And so for me, in my previous roles, I was before the signature. I was a sales engineer proper, and I managed sales engineers. Then now, after the signature, I do professional services. And I manage class-specific teams, both here in San Francisco and in Australia. And then I think in the end of the day, if I wasn't able to see how I'm moving the needle, right? If I wouldn't see the impact, I wouldn't have invested the time, the relocation, and all the other changes I've made in my life to accommodate to this. Of course, when you make the decision, you never know what's coming up. So you can make a very bad decision for various reasons. But in the end of the day, if your gut tells you what to do, like what is the right decision, you should usually, unless it doesn't make any sense, you should listen to it.
Yeah. And just curious, how do you guys define or measure your impact in your jobs? Personally, I guess. Not from your VP of sales, but like what personally, how do you do it?
I think if the people around me are excelling. I mean, that's the point. If I can make my reps do well, if I can make customer success have low churn, if I can make engineering and product relatively happy, that's good.
Yeah. I would add to it, I would say also, if I'm enjoying myself, right, and others enjoy my presence. I invest, and that's my life. It's totally different, and I invite you not to do this. I invest about 10 to 12 hours a day with my current company. That's a choice I decided to do, and I'm fully invested with them for various reasons. I love the people I get to work with, and I enjoy every minute of these 12 hours days around the clock with both Brisbane and the West Coast. And eventually, if I see that I'm enjoying it and they're enjoying it, it's a win-win. And that's something to be added to those things.
Awesome. The last question I have is just any like final points of advice or like tips from your experience that you want to leave us with.
I think that in general, everyone else sees us as sales engineers as being highly valued and very needed, and they can always find things for us to do, but sometimes I feel like when we think about ourselves, we tend to be a little bit more humble people. Maybe I'm not being humble right now, but there's not that same reverence for what we do. So many sales engineers, especially those young in their careers, after they've already proven themselves, they still think that they have to prove themselves. And you have to realize you are a very unique individual, and you don't have to stay at some place that you're not happy if you don't want to. And if you are happy, great, but make sure that you know and you tell people in your department, for instance, your manager or whatnot, what you want out of your career. Because, I mean, sales engineers, typically we stay at the same company for a long time because you're vested in the product, you know what you like, you get into a routine, you know the people, you know what you're doing, and as soon as that starts becoming complacency, don't be afraid to figure out what you need to do next, whether it's another sales engineering role or even moving into a different department.
Yeah, I would say professional development is key, right? And you always have to keep, to be honest with yourself, about where do you want to be in X, Y, Z, whatever it is on time. I think if I wasn't able to say to myself, you know what, also about leaving sales engineering and going back to professional services, if I wasn't able to tell myself, you know what, it's been really nice, but I really want to be after the signature, right? And deliver the entire scale of supporting, consulting, implementation operations, then I wouldn't be, of course, succeeding in what I'm doing today. And I'd say this, it's really important, I guess, for me to repeat this again. I said it earlier. Maintaining integrity and delighting your customers is the most important thing that you can do as a sales engineer. You'll get to your KPIs, I promise you, unless for various reasons other people are preventing you and the product is not what it is. But if you put all your integrity into this and you're delighting your customer by actually solving their problem, they'll ask for more. They always do, even before or after the signature, that doesn't matter. And it's key for your success.
Definitely. I think, I have run out of questions, so any questions in the audience?
Yeah, what does a typical sales cycle look like for you? And, how does the lead come in? How does the salesperson first engage? How do you get pulled onto the call or to the meeting? And how do you interact with that lead prospect going forward?
Sure. So basically with the sales cycle, I mean, it's a traditional sales cycle where I work. You have the lead comes in, the rep qualifies it, makes sure it's a real opportunity. And then at our company, the rep typically does the first overview demo. After that, and they're still interested, that's when I come on and I really go through the vetting and the scoping process. And I say, okay, what do you want? What does this look like? Let's make sure this is going to work and our partnerships make sense. After that, I then go through and I build out a custom environment. Now, in the scoping process, we determine how custom that's going to be. But we go through the custom environment. I then give the demonstration. And after that, it really gets handed back off to the sales rep, and this is where the sales cycle, it becomes, okay, well, what does the client actually need in terms of process? Do they have extra vetting, procedures that they need to go through? Do they need to go through like a security discussion? Do they have, some sort of other process or other people that need to get involved? If there are technical questions, I stay involved. But after that, it's really usually negotiation. I'm typically not a part of that. Now, every deal is different. And you still follow some semblance of the process, but at the same time, you have to understand each deal, just like each person, is going to need different things. And so about not just sticking to process, because process is a very good thing, but knowing when to break from process. I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Have you dealt with account reps, account managers who you personally don't have a problem with, but who who aren't doing so well, who are who don't seem to have the confidence, and who are lacking confidence in their own process? What kind of have you seen that affect the sales process, and is there anything you can do about it?
Yes, actually, there's one that comes to mind when I was kind of first starting in my role. there's always at least one that really stands out. So there was nothing wrong with this particular person, and super nice, and tried really hard, definitely went through things the way that he was supposed to, but it was that lack of confidence that made it so that he could not get past a particular stage. And it was very clear what that stage was.
What was that stage?
For this one, it was past the demo stage. So basically, after the demo, they're like, no, we're good. And that was when he had to give his own. And so I recognized that, and I knew he could do a really good job if he just built that up. So I had a little extra time, and so I took it on myself to work with him one-on-one, because his managers kind of given up on him at that point. And so I, worked with him in terms of making sure that he knew how to give his demos, little bits of confidence here and there, extra time, extra attention there. And unfortunately, he didn't end up, working out with the company, but, he had, when he was leaving, he came up to me and he was like, thank you for spending the time, because it allowed him to realize that that particular avenue was not for him, and it helped him know that it wasn't him, it was not the right fit. So that stuck with me in the terms of, not every position or every industry is right for every person, but there's things that we can do, and again, being that coach or being that manager or being that friend is really, to each individual sales rep, different.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You were a manager. Were there certain things that you helped a lot of your employees with?
Sure. I mean, I'd say we all have our strong suits. In the end of the day, it just also depends where they get stuck, right? Where you can actually inspire them or move them or touch them to, get out there and do their job better. And so, yeah, you have leadership by example. Let me help you and show you how to do it. Then, of course, there's identifying where you can do better and working on your skills to really tune them to make sure that the customer is getting what they need. And so, yeah, I had a few people actually in my team that were lagging behind, and we had to work with them. We built a 3-month process, and then we started tackling them, different skill sets, right? Like from demos to actual communication.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, Bob. Just a question on, you talked a lot about how it fits in with sales positions. How does the sales engineer, or is it quota carrying, or are you guys involved with the kind of strategic focus of what are the best customers? Because I think you guys are in the best positions to understand that matchup. Just any perspective on that can kind of help me understand that lay of the land.
Did you want to start? Okay. So yes, I think all of those are key. I think where you can basically give some of that directive depends on the type of company that you're with. For instance, the type of direction that I would give for, when I was in my company, it was a mid-market company, it was a lot different. It was more deal focused, it was more rep focused, it was more, hey, this is what I'm hearing from our end, versus now when I'm the one and only, and we're an emerging company, it's much more, this is what I'm hearing from a product perspective, this is what I think should be next on the roadmap. Hey, this deal is coming up, we need to make sure that X, Y, and Z are in place. Hey, this is what I've seen be successful from a sales process standpoint. Let's add this in, let's change this. So I think all of the above are true. It's just figuring out within your company, within your particular process, what works. But it's all cross-functional.
Yeah. I would add to this, I'd say also there's a lot of knowledge management. And so your company might be a global one, like the last company I work with, where you have about a dozen sales engineers around the world who are doing, let's say, the same job that you do. Different verticals, different sizes of companies they serve. But in the end of the day, you really want to learn about what are the best practices. How did people get through the door? What worked in the end of the day? And so all this knowledge, right, this historical knowledge needs to be properly, I'd say, communicated around the world, or especially with around the reps. Especially you wouldn't know how much it helps from one person to another when you work in the same company and you know there's only one product. What technique actually got you in, or what it is that people are looking for. And then around this, you learn about trends that are happening in the industry. And that is so important because it makes you not necessarily as a leader, but you are an influencer for them because you can speak confidence about solutions that are happening on the other side of the world. How do people use the product in India, or how do they use it in South Africa? Completely different.
Yeah, Sean.
This is actually a really ironic time. I was going to ask you guys, you guys already kind of touched on it a little bit. Do you guys know exactly what's kind of missing in the product, what's needed in the product and everything? How do you guys pass off that product feedback and kind of record it, or what's the best practices around getting your insights that you have more access to than anybody else back to the product team and making sure those things actually followed up on, or things like that?
For me, it really, I just have a meeting with them. I mean, for me, it's just like one other person. I'm like, this is what I'm hearing. But each company has something different, whether it's, sometimes you're logging tickets, sometimes you're, chatting things out, sometimes it's emails, but really it's just a matter of the communication style of the company that you're in.
Okay.
I would say it depends also how, in addition to logging these tickets, how product is connected to the what you do. So what I used to do, I used to bring my product managers to calls ridiculous hours, right? They were based in San Francisco, I was based in Tokyo. Come with me, I'll bring you a translator. Just listen to what they want. You have no idea how sometimes products, literally product managers, are disconnected from reality. Completely disconnected. In their heads, they have something working in their heads. They have a solution, never going to be used. Where the client says, get me pineapples. They're like, I'll give you oranges. You'll love it. So eventually what I did, I usually brought these product managers on these calls, and they learned a lot. They're not client facing to begin with. So for them to listen to clients actually saying what they need and want was refreshing. And B, I think it shortens the cycle from a meeting to being a broken phone. Oh, did they say this? Did they say that? They were able to listen firsthand to what was really important to the client. And every time, even now in my company right now, I pull product people in constantly. Just listen to what the client wants. It reduces the cycle, say, by at least 2/3.
And you mentioned follow-up. I think in a lot of sales jobs, like that's another missing piece. Like, yeah, like you get that feedback to the team, like you relay it all, but then where's like accountability? How do you guys deal with accountability on your team?
Accountability in terms of
Like,
product?
Yeah, like they're gonna follow through and actually make something happen.
I think a little bit that's on us to provide examples of why they need it and follow up with these are the number of people who are asking for it. So basically providing the details and the facts behind those product and feature requests, but also just making sure that they understand why they need this and why it's a feature gap, and it's not that it's their fault, it's that it's something that we're hearing.
No blaming anyone.
I love to blame. I'm a typical Jewish mother, right? You know, my mother always tells me this joke. I can say it because you're a small audience. The only difference between a Jewish mother and a Rottweiler, eventually the Rottweiler lets go, right? So they will always, and she says it, so she can say it, right? So, but on a serious note, I don't let go. The reason why I work 12 hours with my current company is because I follow up on these tickets. Now I'm behind the signature. I'm doing professional services. But even from before, I would not let go on what's important to my client. Because A, I knew it's going to close a deal. B, I knew that if the prospect is, if we can make this work and we can give them an actual timeline and estimate, this can actually work. And these were major deals for my company. So I think the diligence of actually working and doing all this hard work and legwork and making all these rounds to make sure that you have everything covered is so important. People appreciate it, your clients will appreciate it, you'll appreciate yourself eventually for doing this, and you'll see how it works. Sorry for the joke.
No, that's a great joke. Yeah. I gotta tell people that. That's great.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yeah. Let's go ahead, Bill, first.
So, as someone whose background was in engineering, I'd say the biggest sort of shock to me as a sales engineer was that I was used to things being a bit more black and white. I wrote crappy code, things were bad. I wrote great code, things were great. And so even today, I've been in it for 4 or 5 years now, I'm still dumbfounded by times where it seems most of the time, I'm the technical one, the sales rep, I'm talking about the technical stuff, so I'm talking a foreign language in front of him, speaking Greek, and he's kind of looking at me, reading the tones and kind of being emotional, feeling things out in that sort of way, but I'm actually really discussing in our language what's going on, and then there's so many times where I'll just do a decent demo, maybe I catered a little bit to what they like, maybe a little bit to what they're after, but they close the deal, and the sales rep goes crazy, he's running around the office high-fiving, everybody, Bill crushed this demo, it was amazing, and then I'm like, oh wow, I'm not going to argue, okay, yeah, and then the other call where, it wasn't really a perfect match, I'm doing my best, in fact, I really earned my pay on this call, I really kind of dug in, still being honest, and at the end of the day, it just comes down to that, if it wasn't the exact right match for the sales rep, no matter how much he felt it was in the stars, it just wasn't, and really, I did my job, but he storms out of there, and he may go out to lunch with the rest of the team and go, shit, I brought this guy on the call, I swear to God this was going to be my biggest sale of the year, and I don't know what happened, but all I know is Bill was on the call. I'm like, well, wait, what the hell? This is a weird kind of thing to be in. So how do you deal with that? How do you kind of navigate that, or you just kind of say, hey, this is the world I'm in now?
I can tell you want to take it.
Listen, I've been one of these shitty sales engineers before. I've been named terrible things, and also I've celebrated many successes. I think in the end of the day, Bill, is that when you get a chance to be in full communication with your salesperson, you are one. And so they wouldn't go to the CEO, they wouldn't go to the director. They would know that it didn't work, because it didn't work. There's no lies there, right? If it wasn't a match, that last call would not be a surprise to anyone. Unless something did go wrong. And then there's a cycle of communication, right? In the end of the call, wait, don't go anywhere. Let's talk about what just happened. It's fresh, right? What can we do better? What happened here? Really, can we see why did they react how they did? Did we miss anything in the loop, in the circle? It's really important to talk about those things then, because then, especially big companies become gossip. You don't want to go there. You just want to be one with your sales rep, and eventually to see where the gaps of communication, if there were any. It is what it is.
Off the fly. But I think the more that I know about their process, the more that I know about what our goals are coming into it, and more that I know afterwards, hey, this is why I said what I said, these are the good things, these are things that I think are red flags, I've found the less reps actually go and they say, oh, Liz, we had this horrible demo, blah, blah, blah. At the same time, when you're doing that, the sales managers know that you're going in there and you're being prepared. And in my experience, a lot of times win that rep, maybe they don't go to the sales managers, but if they do, the manager's like, what are you talking about? Liz crushes it every time. Like, I don't know what you're doing, but that's not what happened. And so I think just making sure that you're prepared and you know what's going on is some of the best things that you can do, because ultimately, it doesn't matter what the sales rep says, most of the time, people don't actually listen.
Go ahead, Charles.
When I started my career in robotic engineering, I was told that an efficient way to pursue your professional life was to live uncomfortably, as in like you push yourself to a level to where you're uncomfortable to get yourself comfortable, and then push yourself further to better yourself in your career. How is that dynamic applicable for a sales engineering position?
Great question.
Oh, yes, I love this. Absolutely, it's applicable. I mean, that's why, one of the reasons why I decided to become a first sales engineer in a growing startup where I'm working longer hours than I might want to. And compared to, I had like a super cushy job, work 6 hours a day sometimes. So it's a matter of making sure that you have your own professional development. And I think that it's knowing what path you want to go on. And even if you have a current job right now and you have a current skill set, what do you want to learn that might benefit you in that current job? Or what job do you want to have? Is there an industry that you want to get into and learn, but you just don't have like this one or two skills that they're looking for, so that's what you're going to go for. At the same token, in your current role, how can you make the demo better? How can you say something differently? One of the biggest things is, I'm just using demos as an example, but when you're demoing, you can get so comfortable giving the same demo over and over and over again. You can pretty much give it in your sleep and do the click path and know exactly what to do. Okay, go up to the top, left, you're going to click down, you're going to see this, this, this. Like, I know we've all done it. But it's a matter of how do you position something in a different way and change what you're doing so that it can be that much better. And I think that basically, I feel like putting yourself in an uncomfortable position.
Completely. This will be a shocker to Aaron. I never really wanted to be client-facing when I was younger. I was terrified of speaking to people. And I knew, because my older brother was a VP of ProsperWorks eventually with bigger companies, I always knew that I needed to get out of my nutshell, like eventually grow to become a talkative person. I never was a talkative person. I could not look into the camera. I was, now you can laugh about this, but I really could not do the eye contact. And so for me to grow up and out of the cocoon and basically constantly challenge myself, I knew that I had to do it. Now it just looks natural because I have years of practicing this. But I think you said it nicely, Charles. Every time you need to constantly push yourself forward. Is this job that I'm currently doing easy? One of the hardest jobs I've ever done in my life. Ridiculous, right? And so, in the end of the day, constantly challenge yourself, and you'll find to be rewarded, whether it's money or title or new relationships. I've made hundreds of friends in my last few jobs that I'm now willing to let go. These friendships mean the world to me, more than money, more than titles, more than anything. And so I think the rewards are unlimited.
Go ahead, Dan.
So as you talked about doing the same demo over and over again, slightly different iterations of the demo. At the same time, there's that notion, but there's also the notion of being in sales engineering, you're always changing, there's always something new about it. I'm having a difficulty understanding how you're going, and I do the same thing, you do the same demos over and over again. But there's, for my role, there's quite a bit of nuances and differences between them. But in your role, how do you do the same demos, but then also say that you're doing different things all the time? Or what are the different changes that you're doing? And be a little more specific about
Sure. So in terms of the demos, there's a couple different demos you can give, and I'm pulling from all of my years of So in terms of demos, it's very easy if you're giving an overview demo to go through the click path and you just say, I can tell you've done it. You click here, all right, this is the value, this is what you want, and you're not really thinking about what they've actually said, or you're not really asking the question. So I think that in that standpoint, yeah, you can give the same demo over and over again without actually realizing the differences in who you're talking to. But also in terms of the role constantly changing, I mean, this is where you get into the other side of the role where you're doing your problem solving. You're thinking about their specific instance. And this is more of, at a very high level, other than the internal discussions that you have, I feel like there's two main client-facing roles that we have. There's the demo, and then there's the scoping. Again, very basic, but the scoping, that's really where you're like, okay, I have to figure out how this, how this imperfect solution that they're trying to get is going to match with our imperfect product, and trying to get those matches. And I think that in terms of those matches, that's what makes it different all the time, because one's person's scenarios and the integrations they're going to want to do and how they're going to want to accomplish this is going to be different than the next person who's the exact same business. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Dad, real quick. So, yeah. So I think we'll end it there. It's the last question. Definitely mingle and ask these guys. Come up to them. They're friendly, obviously, as you can tell. Please ask them anything. I wanted to give a huge shout out and round of applause to you two. Thank you so much. And thank you guys again for coming to support and learning with us. Thank you to my team for helping put this together. Yeah, thank you guys. There's food and drink left, so yeah, have a good time. Have a good night. Thank you.
Hi.
And the Giants are winning. See you.
And